What up, Wastelanders? Christopher here, Gaslands NorCal. Thanks for joining me once again for another instructional video. Now, this time we're going to be talking about rusting and weathering. I know I've done videos like this in the past, but looking at my library and history of it, it's been a while since I've done one, and I've gotten some new products that I use now, got some new techniques that I've done, and so I kind of wanted to do an update and even talk more about coloring and how the color of the base model is going to affect how your rust and your weathering is going to look. Now for this, I've got a La Troca, a 69 Dodge Charger, and a Plymouth Duster Thruster from the Stars and Stripes series, obviously no longer Stars and Stripes. I've got a bunch of different paints and washes, even got some typhus corrosion in there, got some pigments I'm going to be using. We're going to be talking about how all of these things work together to get your build so it looks wastelands, rusted, weathered, everything else. So we're going to get these models painted up, and then we'll move on to getting them all rusted up. Let's do this. Alright, so we're all painted up here, obviously using the Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl for these paints. For the Troca, we used the dark ivory. Then we added some turquoise to do the Plymouth Duster. And then when we went on to the Dodge Charger, added a little bit of the royal purple. So it's not like a really dark purple, but still just kind of a transition from one color to the next. And we're going to talk about how each of these colors, how I use a different kind of technique when rusting and chipping and everything else to make it stand out, because obviously if you use like a really light color on the ivory, it may not stand out as much, and if you use a really dark color on the royal purple, that may not stand out as much. So kind of mixing and matching and getting the right style and the right type of paint and the right color with the right base color is really important to make your models just really stand out and look rusted and look all damaged. So next we're going to go on and we're going to do agrax on each one of these just to get everything to pop and everything and start the weathering process as we get these things put back together. So let's get some agrax on there, and then we'll see how we're looking from there, and then we'll go on to the next step. Alright, everything's all painted up and good to go. Got the agrax all dried, got the all the details and stuff all popping and stuff. Next we're moving on to the chipping method. Really love this MIG chipping solution. Just going to be using the sponge method with this. So you get some of the chipping solution into your paint tray. Dab it in there, dab your sponge in there, get it kind of saturated, and then dry it up on a paper towel so just little speckles are coming through. And they get the high contact areas that paint's normally going to chip on around the wheel wells and stuff. Yeah, so we're going to do that on all of these before we move on to rusting these things up with a different technique on each one. But yeah, looking good so far. Let's get these babies chipped up. Alright, chipping's all done, and as you can see with the different colors, obviously it's going to come out a little bit different. It's going to show up more on the lighter color paint job. The blue, it really does show up on really well. I like how it comes out on that one. For the purple, it's more difficult to see, especially on camera, but that's going to kind of help when we do the actual rust, because when we do the rusting on each one of these, we're going to be focusing mainly on the areas that was actually where the chipping was at, because if you look on real vehicles and real metal and stuff, that's where the rust is going to come through on the area that the paint is not, because the paint theoretically is supposed to help it from not rusting. So with it all chipped off, that's where it's going to rust at. So next we are actually going to start getting these together and get the armor and the weapons and stuff on there, because I want the rust to go with the rest of the vehicle, not just the rust on the body and then not having rust on the weapons and the armor and stuff. It needs to kind of transition through and look like it was all rusted together. That's how I'm going to have these ones up here anyway, so let's get all the accoutrement on here, and then we'll take a look at how everything is looking, and then we'll start on the rust. Looking good. Alright, so everything is all together now. Got all the weapons and armor and everything on there. Even just with that, these things are looking pretty badass, even without the rust and stuff on there. But that's what we're here to do, so we're going to get everything rusted up. Armor fitting in really well on this one. Like I said, you can't really see the chipping and stuff on this because it's darker, but we'll fix that. The blue, just outstanding. Loving how this has turned out. So we're going to do rusting on each one of these and some weathering and whatnot before we get on to the more detailed stuff like the headlights and getting the wheels and stuff on there. So first we are going to start off with the truck. Now for the truck, I want to get it really rusted and corroded since it's the oldest one of the bunch. And to do that, we're going to start off with some typhus corrosion, getting it around the wheel wells, around where the armor and stuff is at, the grill and everything. Just getting it all crusty, just like an old truck should be. So we're going to get the typhus on there and then let that start drying, and then we'll be moving on and doing a little bit of the Vallejo wash on there for this one. And we're going to dry brush after the typhus is all dried up. Dry brush some of the MIG Dio dry brush paint, which we're actually going to use on the purple one as well, but not as a dry brush. This is going to be actual rust on it, and that will really pop, especially with the brighter orange color for this one. For the blue, we're going to go just with a straight Vallejo Air orange rust. And get it around the edges and everything, and that's going to be a totally different effect. And then we're also going to use some streaking on this. For all of them, we are going to be using the Vallejo pigments to dust over it, but that's going to be the very last step. So first off, let's start getting the typhus on the truck, and then we'll see where everything's at when it starts getting dried up. Let's start some corrosion. Alright, corrosion's all dried up, looking pretty good, looking corroded. So next we're going to go on to the dry brush. This is the Rust MIG dry brush. It's kind of a thick gel almost. We're just going to do a really light dry brush around the edges there where we did the corrosion, just to get it all rusted looking. And then we're going to do some of the light rust wash from Vallejo. So like I said, it's really kind of light just around those areas to get those areas all rusted up, and then we'll do the wash. So yeah, let's get that going. Alright, so the truck's getting all corroded and drying up, looking pretty good. Still going to be doing the dusting with the pigment, but that's going to be the last step that we do for all of them. Do it all at once because that can get very messy and particles and stuff flying through the air, so we're going to do that all at once. So we're going to set the truck aside for now, and we're going to move on to the charger. Like I said, we're going to be using the MIG dry brush paint for the charger. Not using it in a dry brush fashion really, more so just kind of dabbing it. You'll see as I go along. But yeah, that's what we're going to be using for this one. And then probably doing a little bit of the orange rust on there, but we'll see how everything's looking as we're moving along. So yeah, let's start getting this baby rusted up and see how she looks. Alright, it's got the charger all done. You can see how that orange just really pops against the darker color. It probably wouldn't look quite as good against the lighter color. It just kind of blend a little bit too much. But yeah, that's kind of how it looks against a darker colored paint. So very much orange and splotchy and rusty. It's going to look a hell of a lot better when we do the pigments on there. So you'll see once we get that done. Next, we're going to move on to the blue. And for that, we are just going to be using the regular old orange rust from Vallejo. And for that one, I'm going to start off kind of blotting it around the edges and on the sharper edges. But then I'm going to go to a finer brush to do some streaking on there. And you'll see as it goes through the video. So yeah, let's get the blue one done. And then we'll move on to the pigment for all of them before we get the the finer detail work done and get the tires and stuff on there, then these things will be good. Let's get this one rusted. Alright, so everything's all dried and ready for the last step. Looking pretty good so far, just with what we've done. Looking very rusted and everything else, but still just needing that last little pop of something. And that little pop is going to be the Vallejo pigments. I really like using the old rust. I've got a bunch of different colors of pigments. Old rust, new rust, not so whatever rust, but this is my favorite. So this is what we're going to be using. And basically what I'm going to be doing is just really taking the rust and just saturating each one of these builds with a bunch of the rust, blowing it off a little bit, and then I'm going to use the magic power of Aquanet and just get kind of dusted so the pigment will adhere to the model better and kind of stick more. So let's get these things all coated with the pigment, sprayed with the Aquanet. We'll let it dry. We'll get the finer detail work done, like the headlights and everything else. Then we'll get the tires on there, get a final dusting, and then these things will be good to go. Let's get some pigment on there. And there we have it. 3 rusted Wastelands vehicles, all done in a little bit different style, a little bit obviously different coloring and stuff. Hopefully I showed you how the different rusting effects and weathering effects appear and show up on the different color builds. Had a lot of fun doing it. Always like fun, you know, showcasing what I've learned over the years and everything else. And yes, it has been years since I've been doing these. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please do me a favor and hit that like button. My goal is to do weekly videos, whether they're vehicle builds, terrain builds, whatever. So if that's for you, please hit the sub button below and ring the bell to get notified when new content drops. I do sell all my builds pretty inexpensively on my Etsy page, so if you want to pick something up, see what else I've created, you can even request a custom build. Until next time, keep your foot on the gas and your finger on the trigger. Gaslands NorCal, signing out.